Good morning, church. Thank you so much for joining us on live stream this Sunday morning. So sorry that we couldn't be together in the church building. As you know, Pastor Richard and Carla are gone for the weekend, and Pastor Amaris and myself found out that we were exposed to someone with COVID-19. So we're waiting actually for our test results. Currently, we feel great, we feel fine, but we just didn't want to put anyone at risk. We didn't want you or your family to be exposed or unsafe or anything like that. So I'm so sorry we couldn't meet together. We miss you all this morning, but thank you so much for tuning in with us. My sermon today is going to be taken out of Exodus 33. It's called What's the Difference? Right now we're going to be in Exodus 33, but we're going to backtrack. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Exodus 32. Now at this point, before Exodus 32, what happened was that we found that the Israelites have made their way to this wilderness place where they're at. They saw that God had delivered them from the Egyptians, the people that enslaved them for generations. We saw that God brought 10 plagues into the land. We saw that God split the Red Sea. He's just done amazing things for the people of Israel. They're on their way to freedom, on the way to the promised land, and that all happened because of God, because God was with them, because He was in control, because He was doing all of these things for them. Now, on their journey into the desert, we see even more great things happening, right? They get to Sinai and they set up camp, and Moses goes up onto the mountain. And he becomes kind of like a middleman between God and the Israelites here, and he's going up and down, and he's trying to just basically relay all the messages to God to them. And God basically says, "I want to make a covenant with the Israelites, a new covenant a covenant that has laws and rules and commandments and all these things. I want them to follow them and obey these commands and this law that I'm giving." And they get all excited about it, right? And why not? Because God just did all these amazing things for them. So they get all gung-ho about it, and they say, all right, let's do it. Let's commit to following this law that we're going to get. We're all for it. God's so great. Let's do it. And then we get to see thunder and lightning and all these earthquakes and stuff happening because God is there, right? Just such an awesome time for the Israelites. And then Moses goes back up to get all the commandments and the laws that they're committing to from God. And while he's up there for 40 days. It's only been 40 days since they committed to this. Then we see that they get impatient. They are tired of waiting for Moses to come back. They're tired of waiting to hear what God is going to say, and they ask for a new God. This is craziness. This is insane. They ask for a new God. They go to Aaron and they say, listen, we want this. This is what's happening. And Aaron says, fine. If they want it, they've got it. He takes all of their gold and he melts it down. They construct a golden calf. They construct this new God. And this is all happening while Moses is getting the 10 Commandments. He's getting the law. He's up on the mountain with God. The new God gets constructed, and Aaron delivers one of the saddest quotes, one of the saddest scriptures in the Bible. He says in Exodus 32:4, talking about the gods that they created, the idols that they created, he said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." These are your gods? This is so blasphemous. This is so wrong. What he's saying is all those amazing things that just happened, all that stuff that you just saw, all the things that happened to get you out of bondage, they did this. These new gods that we created, those are the ones who get all the glory. He's stealing the glory away from God by saying this. They start worshiping these new idols. It's heartbreaking. And God gets so angry. He's just about done with the Israelite people. And Moses, he pleads with God. He pleads with him that he wouldn't be completely done. And finally, he kind of agrees, and Moses comes back down, and God decides that the only thing that's going to happen is he's going to give a plague, and it's going to infect the ones that were leading the charge, that did all this, but he doesn't fully give up on Israel. Right? There's still, he just says, you know what, fine. I'm not going to fully give up on Israel, right? There's still a little bit of hope, right? Thanks to Moses. And now here we are in Exodus 33, where we find our text. In verse 1, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, leave this place. you and the people you brought up out of Egypt, and go to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you and drive out the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you, because you are a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. This is bad. This is terrible and upsetting for the Israelites. He says, you all are too much. I can't handle it. I can't go with you. Listen, I can't follow you there, or else I'm going to go crazy, right? I'm going to destroy you on the way. But he does at least tell them that he's going to send an angel. And most of the Israelites, most of us, would probably say, well, I guess that's a fair trade. I guess that's all right. But Moses does not want that. He does not want anything less than God's Spirit. And when we jump down to verse 12, he says this. He says, Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways so I might know and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you have asked, because I am pleased with you and I know you by name. Moses pleaded with God. And why did he do this? Did he do this because he needed a guide? No. Did he do this because, he just wanted, to just win the argument? No, he didn't just do this for these little reasons. He didn't do it for selfish gain. He did it because he knew that he needed God. He could have had an angel. He could have had, something that's close but not quite it. He could have been okay with that, but he didn't settle for anything less than the presence of God. He wanted and needed God. He knew an important truth, that God's presence is everything. That his Spirit is the difference between them and the rest of the world. Moses needed God. The Israelites needed God. If it weren't for Yahweh, if it weren't for their God, right? If it wasn't for him, they would still be in captivity. It wasn't the calf that brought them out of Egypt. It wasn't Moses. It wasn't luck. It was not a revolution. It was the Spirit of God that got them out of Egypt. The same God who parted the sea. The same God who made a covenant with them. Their relationship with God and his present Spirit is what set the Israelites apart from the rest of the world. When the Israelites forgot this, thank the Lord that Moses remembered this. Moses knew this was important. He pleaded with God and he coveted his Spirit. And God showed him grace. Church, how much more do we need his Spirit? How much more do we need his presence? We're stiff-necked, we're impatient, we look for other solutions to problems, we focus on the wrong things when we stop leaning on God. How much more do we need God to give us his Spirit? How much more do we need God to show us that grace that he showed them? Now flash forward to the New Testament, and we find that not only is God's Spirit is around, right? But we find that something beautiful has happened. We find that Jesus, God in the flesh, came to earth, right, to save a stiff-necked people, right, like you and me. And not only does the Creator come down, right, and he doesn't just become so personal, but he goes a step further. And then that has ever gone before this, he introduces something new. And he says that in John 14 and 15 to 26, he says, all this I have spoken while still with you, but the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and remind you of everything I said. He offers his Spirit to be with us. He's saying in a few verses earlier that it's going to be here forever. He's offering something brand new, something totally different, right? Because we know that in Acts 2, what happens, in Acts 2, 1-4, it says, when the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came on the rest of them. All of them were filled with the Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Jesus offered the Spirit in a brand new way, right? It's no longer just something that is near his people or something that's guiding from a distance. It's ahead of them. It's no longer something that just comes onto certain people at certain times, like what happens in the Old Testament. He's offering his Spirit to be dwelling within those who keep his commandments, those who love him, those who follows them forever. Empowering them, changing them. He's offering the thing that Moses begged and pleaded for is now promised to each and every one of us. That it's going to live in us. It's going to empower us. It's going to be with us in a whole new way. Not only did Christ come in the New Testament, but he extended his Spirit to us. And this is so awesome that we live in this point in history. That we don't have to just see it from a distance. We don't have to just hope that maybe we'll be chosen, that we're going to do something great. The Spirit's going to come on us for a time, but the Spirit will be with us forever. It's so amazing, right? And now we have full access to this life. That now, it's completely a whole change when the Spirit lives inside of you. Jesus wants to have every part of you. He wants to change you and make you new. And he wants you to abide by his laws, his commandments, be empowered by his Spirit. This is how God's mercy can be seen. Just like it was back then when he says, you know what? I'm going to give you my Spirit. Because guess what? We're still a stiff-necked people. There's nothing that we did that made us any different from the Israelites. We're still stiff-necked, but God chose to show us grace and mercy and give us his Spirit. Right? We have what Moses pleaded for. We have what the prophets longed to hear from. We have what was just given to the kings and the judges in the Old Testament. We have that in our lives. Why don't we act differently? Like, why are we celebrating this? Why are we not each and every day getting up and just thanking God and asking him to infill us and to empower us and to use us? This is a big deal. Moses was just begging for the Spirit to be with them, like in front of them, leading them. But we have the Spirit. Why don't we press in more? Why don't we covet it more? Sadly, we don't look to the Spirit for guidance and empowerment enough. Sometimes we don't rely on it enough like we should. How many of you know that we just had an election this year, and listen, elections are good, elections are great. We know the pastor just gave us a sermon series about how the church's voice should be heard in this country, right? But what did we hear? We heard that this is the most important thing, and this candidate or that candidate is our only hope, and the government needs to stop COVID. The government needs to fix injustice. The government needs to put an end to violence. But what about God? What about his Spirit? He is the answer to everything, every problem we face. He is the one that we should be leaning on. We shouldn't be looking to these different things like Israel looked to a golden calf, right? We should be looking towards God. We should be asking God to be with us and empower us and change us and help us to change our country, to lean on him for the change. Jesus is the answer to everything we face. And guess what? The Spirit is the difference between us and the rest of the world, church. And the Spirit wants to bring real change. Is the only change we'll ever truly see. And the Bible tells us some awesome things about what happens when we have the Spirit, about what change we see. We see in Galatians 5:22 and 23, it tells us that the fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and gentleness, right? We see that the Spirit wants to change the way we act, guess what? All the things happening, all the injustice and the wrongdoing and the violence and the everything happening in our country and the infighting, everything that's happening, if we would have the fruit of the Spirit, if we'd rely on the Spirit, and everyone would do that, it would fix all that. Because Jesus is the answer. His Spirit is the difference in us. We don't have to be worried about these things because we have Jesus. We just have to act. We have to bear the fruits of His Spirit. We have to realize that He is the difference. He is what makes us different than the rest of the world. Moses said, "Don't let me leave this place without it." We should be asking God, don't let me leave this house. Don't let me leave for work. Don't let me leave for school. Don't let me leave to go to a family member's house, a friend's house, whatever it is, without His Spirit, without His empowerment. Listen, the Spirit wants to take over every part of it. We just read the fruits of the Spirit is kind of hits the way that we would interact with other people, right? But and then this is kind of the icing on the cake. And not only does the Spirit want to empower us and change the way we act, but He wants to invade everything we do. Right? It says that the Spirit gives gifts. We read that in the Bible, right? There's so many different gifts that the Spirit gives us to work, to do more work and further the kingdom. And we see that that's prophecy, serving, teaching, encouraging, giving, leadership, mercy, words of wisdom, words of knowledge, faith, healing, discernment, tongues, interpretation of tongues, helps, administration, being an evangelist, being a pastor. The Spirit wants to use us in so many ways. Between those gifts and the fruits of the Spirit, we can see that there is nothing that wants to be untouched by the Spirit in our lives. The Spirit wants to change us and empower us to do a work for Jesus. In our life, He wants to change our lives. He wants us to change our communities, and He wants us to change our world for Him. Don't go anywhere without the Spirit of God. It is so important to have it. It is our empowerment to do these things. It is going to bring gifts that we can further His kingdom and do His will. Church, God wants to be so personal and be in us, work through us. Cry out for His Spirit. Ask for His infilling every single day. Ask for His empowerment. Ask Him to be with you. Ask Him for the fruits that His Spirit bears. Church, be different. Be different than the rest of the world. Be the change that Jesus wants us to be. Show the world that He is pleased with us and that He is working in us. Don't leave this place without the Spirit of God. It is so important. And church, He loves us and He wants us for us and He wants us to impact the world. So church, be different. Be different than the world.